In this chapter, we're going to take some of the principles that we've learnt when looking at conditional statements and apply them in a new way. We're going to be looking at the basic concept of a loop, iterative loops, and loops in the context of arrays and hashes. Let's have a look first at what is so special about a loop. What can we do that we can't do without a loop? A loop allows us to save time when the computer is carrying out repetitive tasks. One of the main things that a computer does for us is to make repetitive jobs very easy. So we should never, when writing our Perl scripts, come up with a situation where we're getting the computer to do a number of very similar things in a very obvious pattern, and we're telling them to do each one explicitly. We should never find ourselves telling the computer to output the number 1, followed by the number 2, number 3, the number 4, and so on, if we want it to count to 10. This is a very crude example, but it illustrates the kind of repetitive task that can easily be simplified by using a control structure such as a loop. Let's have a look at how we could structure our program differently in order to make it more concise. You'll immediately notice that there's some similarity between this flowchart and the one I used to introduce the idea of conditional statements. Over here we have a branch where the computer, based on a condition, will either go one way or another way through the program. So let's see what happens in this scenario. First of all, we set a variable to a certain value. Because we're counting to 1 to 10, we're going to set that variable to 1. After that, the first thing we do is to check that x, the variable we've just set, is still less than 11. If it is still less than 11, we move over to here. This is where the output takes place, and then we add a number to the variable. In this case, we're just adding 1, and we go right the way back to just before this branch. Now we do the same check again. Obviously this will be repeated 10 times. Finally, the check, once we get up to the number 11, will evaluate false. So the number 11 is never shown. We go down this path and the program finishes. Counting 1 to 10, in that scenario, there isn't a whole lot of difference in terms of the numbers of lines of code we have to do to show the two different scenarios, one with a loop and one without. However, if we increase the number, or if we're doing anything slightly more complex and counting from 1 to 10, then the loops really come into their own. Let's have a look now at the way we actually carry this out when we come to create a Perl script. The while loop is the most basic and simple of loops available to us when we're writing our Perl scripts. Structurally, it looks very similar to an if statement. We say while a certain condition is true, then we use the same curly brackets to mark out a block of statements which are carried out as long as this condition is true. The difference between a while loop, of course, and an if statement is that with an if statement, the statement block is only carried out the once. With a while loop, as soon as the set of statements inside the block are completed, it goes straight back up again and re-evaluates the condition.